Au revoir. Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of FitPet Boston Talks. My name is Leah Lodato, and I am the host of this little show. Thank you so much for tuning in, for spending your precious time hanging out with Lori and I. I am joined by my spouse, Lori Lodato.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about a little bit of news. What do they say on the Kelsey podcast?
New news.
New news. Okay.
The New Heights podcast. New news. I think we should start off lighter than this.
No, we are going to start off later than this because I'm going to talk about something that happened today. But in the meantime, I wanted to talk about a story that happened to me when I was in the woods today.
Okay, I'm ready. I haven't heard it yet.
I know. I was holding it in all day. And before I get going on that, I'm so sorry. I just have to do my little intro. So if you're new to the podcast, thank you so much for tuning in. This show has historically interviewed local Boston area dog handling professionals, and we have talked about our lives, dogs, and careers. I feel like I need to say this at the beginning of every episode, just in case you are brandy new and you have stumbled upon this podcast in the internet ether. Laurie and I are Boston, Massachusetts area dog handlers. I am primarily a dog walker, and Laurie is a trainer. And we do private lessons, we do group classes, and in addition to working with clients to hopefully help them have better relationships with their dogs, we also compete in a variety of different dog sports and events with our own personal dogs. So we do spend quite a bit of time in the company of dogs and in the company of other people who hang out with their dogs. And we like to share our experiences on this podcast. It's super fun, and thus far, everybody seems into it. So if you like what you're listening to, share it with your friends, and you can let us know. You can contact us on Instagram at FitPetBoston, at ABC Dog Training. The Instagram profile for the podcast is at FPB Talks. I look forward to hearing from you, especially if you're new. And so we'll get into it. This is probably going to be a short little episode. We are on the every Friday schedule of releasing a podcast. So it's Thursday night, and it's been a long and rainy week.
Long. It rains every day.
Mm-hmm.
We took a knock. Yeah.
Pretty much. I had to dig deep this week. It was a tough week to be outside. So today I was walking 3 dogs. I had 2 of my old faithful labs, Callie and Leo.
Mm-hmm.
The
yellow
lab brigade. Super great dogs. I love hiking with them. They're the type of dogs where I can bring them with any other dog that I'm working with, and they were with a puppy. He's a little less than a year, so I can still consider him a puppy, but his name is Fozzie. He's a little golden doodle puppy. Still kind of in training with Fozzie. We're working on some e-collar conditioning. I still have him on a leash, dragging a leash rather, and these 3 dogs just fit absolutely perfect together. And we were coming back from our hike. I was just getting ready to walk out of the woods, so I actually had all 3 leashes in my hand. And as I'm walking towards the entrance of the woods, I look over to my right and I see a deer. I'm like, oh, running across my path. I'm like, and then I see another deer, and then I see another deer, and then I see another deer, and then I see another deer.
Come on.
And then I see a golden doodle.
Oh, snap. Dun, da, da, da.
That looked exactly like Penny, Catherine's dog.
Oh, okay.
Running and barking after these deer.
Well, she was herding them.
Yes. And the deer ran right up the hill, and I just go, hey, you. I was like, girl, what are you doing? And the dog just stopped and looked at me, and she started to take a few steps towards me, and I go back to your mama. And she looked at me and just ran in the other direction.
Go back to your mama. Get on, get.
And it was awesome because I didn't even hear anybody shouting for this dog. I don't know if...
No, they were crying underneath a bush somewhere. When your dog runs away, there's a certain panic that sets in, and it starts off like, Frank? Frank! then you just start crying, and then you have to try to blame your spouse, but your spouse isn't there, and so you try to blame somebody else, and then you're just sad.
You start running.
Yeah. It gets frantic.
Yeah,
it gets frantic when you lose the dog. You know, things are normal, and then you just feel that you're gonna just die.
The funniest part was my dogs who did.
They're like, "Yep, there goes some deer."
Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. I was like, "Oh, they just keep coming and coming and coming," and then at the very end, there's a dog. And even with Fozzie, who was a puppy, he just was frozen. He was just staring at. I mean, Callie was sitting. She was just like,
"Oh, she's too tired.
I guess we've stopped."
She was tired from the moment you walked into the door to pick her up.
I know. She's so precious. It's actually sometimes difficult to walk with her and Leo because they're so
slow,
pack driven that they're next to. I mean, glued to me pretty much the whole time, and I'm like stepping over them, and she steps on Fozzie's long line, and so Fozzie's just constantly getting jerked around because Callie is stepping on the line, and I'm like, well, who's to blame, really? Me. I should probably have a short leash on because that dog is not running away. I don't even have to knock on wood. He's gonna be awesome. But yeah, I don't know where that dog went to after it left me, but I was pretty thrilled to be able to call the dog off of the deer, and it happened kind of right away. And I feel like that's a great testament to just having like a soft pet dog. Is like, yes, she was chasing and she was in it to win it, but her chase was very easily interrupted by a complete stranger.
Yeah.
Whereas if it were like Reuben or Buddha, like
a shepherd or a Malinois,
yeah, they're not going to listen to some stranger being like, "Hey, you, what are you up to?"
Yeah, they'd turn around with their bulletproof vest on, their gun drawn. They would point it at you. Yep. I'm working here.
I know.
It's funny.
But you got to train your dogs, people. You have to train your dogs. They should come back to you when they're called.
Apparently, hey works.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yep. But it was a situation where I was like, I don't know how far away this dog is from their owner. I'm hoping close by because we were so close to the street, but who knows? Normally when there's a lost dog, you hear yelling. When I walk, I always know if there's a lost dog because there would be some hysterical person just screaming through the woods. And I didn't hear anything. I actually stood there for a couple minutes just to see if I could
find
hear.
The owner.
Yeah. But I did not hear a thing. And nobody was really out this week. It was so rainy and disgusting.
I wonder where they came from.
I don't know.
All right.
She came from the deer were obviously in the woods. So they came from the woods, the whole entourage. And they crossed my path
posse.
As I was leaving. And I tend to like leash up the dogs with maybe like, I don't know, 100 feet or so before I hit the road. It's always weird. Like when you enter the woods, you lift them off the leash right away. But when you're exiting and you can see the street or see the car, I usually leash them up with a bunch of distance to go just to feel like I have extra control. But that's just me, and I'm a little psycho. And I really don't want the dogs to go on the neighbor's yard. So yeah, I keep it tight.
They all yell at you, so you have no choice.
Nobody yells at me. I just don't feel right about it if the dogs go up on somebody else's property. That's just me. But I know everybody in that little neighborhood is friendly, but I don't want to push the envelope, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So with that being said, I thought that we would do a little expose on a news story that happened out west somewhere. So, Lori, do you want to do the honors and do the dramatic reading of the story?
No, it's not a good story, so I don't know.
It's not a good story at all.
About that.
It's a really shitty story, but that's my trigger warning or whatever they say these days to make sure that your feelings aren't completely hurt. So if you don't want to hear a sadder story, fast forward. You can listen to our commentary, but then you'll have no idea what we're talking about. So,
oh my God.
Go on now.
Go on now. Hey,
girl.
If you needed another reason not to go to the dog park,
dun, dun,
a person kills a Rottweiler during a dog fight at off-leash Reno Park, officials say. A dog owner will not face charges after they shot a Rottweiler during a dog fight at a Reno park on Sunday. The shooting happened at Rancho San Rafael Regional Park after a Rottweiler bit a smaller dog on its neck and started, quote unquote, thrashing it. Kristen Vietti, a spokesperson for the Washoe County Sheriff's Office, told SF Gate, name of the paper. The small dog's owner tried to physically break up the dogs, but was bitten in the arm by the Rottweiler, Vietti said. After being bit, the dog owner shot the Rottweiler. Several local news outlets reported that the Rottweiler was shot 4 times with a Glock 26 and died by the time Washoe County Regional Animal Services arrived. The other dog, a Shih Tzu that was not leashed at the time, was injured and reported stable as of Monday, the outlet said. The area where the shooting happened is an off-leash park where all owners are legally responsible for their dog's behavior or injuries they may cause, according to the Washoe County website. The website states that dog owners must remove their dogs as soon as they become aggressive. That's just okay. Deputies from the sheriff's office responded to the Sunday shooting with animal services and took an incident report, Vietti said. Officials determined that a crime did not occur because it's legal to shoot a gun if someone is protecting their life or property, Vietti said. Aside from that exception, county law would make it illegal for someone to shoot a gun in a county park, she said. And that's it.
What do you think, Lori? As a Rottweiler owner, what's your first response to that story, which is obviously like horribly tragic and super scary?
First is it's horribly tragic, and 2, you should not go to those places and put your dog in that position. And like these high prey drive dogs, you don't need to be bringing to a situation where other dogs are running up to them.
Yeah.
You're in a dog park. I don't care if the dog is off leash. I feel like I just, you shouldn't go there.
Right.
You shouldn't be there with your dog. You shouldn't be there with your Rottweiler. Like, I have dogs all day long. I let dogs play all day long. Do you, well, with exception, breaks here and there, and this is structured play. And Buddha's not out. He's not out with every single dog. I know exactly who he gets along with. I know who's going to push buttons. I don't do it. And people always ask me, it's so important. I have, a customer in the past, he was just so hell-bent on bringing his dog to the dog park every day, even though it was really ruining the dog's recall. And he admitted to me that he liked the social aspect himself. And he missed going there. I'm like, well, can't you just walk there and talk to all the old ladies you talk to? And he said he was just missing it,
Yeah.
But I was, in my head, I was like, this is gross and disgusting and terrible. I mean, the guy had a gun on him, so you're not allowed to shoot in the park. He was protecting his property, right?
Yeah,
his
you just
dog.
Can't willy-nilly shoot a gun.
But it's just interesting that he had a gun on him.
Oh, a lot of people have guns on them.
And I was like, oh, okay. Going to the dog park. Got to get my gun. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people carry. You can. It's legal. And to be fair, and I hate to say this, but especially if the Rottweiler bit the guy in the arm, that's exactly what a gun is for. If the Rottweiler bit the guy in the arm and the guy was worried that he was going to come back at him again, I can't think of another instance where a gun would be more appropriate. Right? Like, that's what it's for. But
this is too dicey a subject for me.
But to me, it's like, that's why the guy is, I mean, like the article said, the guy's not getting charged. Right? So
yeah, he's not getting charged because he was protecting his property.
Because he was protecting his property, right?
His dog.
And to me, like, would you or I probably have been able to handle the situation better because we're dog handlers? Probably. But I think if people don't have the experience or like don't understand kind of what's going on, I can see how.
I wonder what the owner was.
I can see how that situation would escalate very quickly. Yeah.
I can see how it would escalate quickly with somebody who is carrying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there, so he used it.
Yep.
I mean, I feel bad about the whole situation.
Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, and also because the person who's handling the Rottweiler couldn't have, used some defensive handling techniques to get the dog to stop.
Well, they must have, I don't know who the owner is. They must have been watching it the whole time. It seemed like the Rottweiler was on leash and the Shih Tzu.
Yeah, it said the Rottweiler was on leash.
Was not
and
on
the
leash.
Shih Tzu wasn't.
So she or he was at the end of the line.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just watching this whole thing occur.
Yeah,
it's
weird.
crazy. She must have dropped the line because somebody's shooting at you.
Yeah.
The person had to be dropping the line. I mean, damn. Don't go to dog parks.
Yeah, you can't go to dog parks.
And definitely not there.
No.
Don't go to dog parks there.
And if you have a dog that's like Lori said, has high prey drive or is going to, not walk away from a fight but not start one, that's a popular phrase people use, like, my dog's not going to, start a fight, but they're not going to walk away from one either. Like, if you have a dog that has that personality, you can't bring them to a place where they're probably going to get run up on because it's a dog park. And I think it sounded like this particular dog park was kind of the vibes of the Fell Sheepfold, where it's not like a fenced-in dog park, but it's an off-leash area where you can, maybe the Rottweiler was walking along the edge and they were staying away from the other dogs that were like playing off the leash. It's not like a small fenced-in gravel dog park that you would think of in a city. It's like a more open area. So, I can see how somebody that had a dog that might not be the best candidate for that environment might say, oh, well, I'm just going to stay far away from the other dogs. And that way there'll be all this space and I'll be, a little bit more safe. But ultimately the answer is like, you can't be there if you have a dog that's going to get set off by a dog running up to it. And also it's a Shih Tzu. So it's like literally one of the littlest dogs ever.
Small, hairy, and fast.
Yeah, like it like kind of looks like a squirrel.
It's just funny how it said not funny, but the website states that dog owners must remove their dog as soon as they become aggressive. Isn't it a little too late?
Yeah,
then?
How about we don't have too late. Aggressive things happening all the time because you don't bring those dogs there.
Yeah,
that'd be good.
A little too late then.
That'd be good.
So yeah, and that way, just like I said, just another reason not to bring your dog to the dog park.
Yeah. And I know that sounds like such a cop-out answer too, because that's kind of the advice that I give in training classes too sometimes. It's like, my dog's jumping on people when they come over. I'm like, why are you letting them do it? Like, it's literally that simple. It's like, you're allowing that to happen. Well, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. Put a leash, put a crate. Like, well, I don't want them to want to jump on somebody. It's like, well, that's not going to freaking happen. And if it does, it's going to take a long time. So in the meantime, like, let's just not let it happen. Can we do that? And so for this situation, it's like, this situation would not have happened if you weren't there. And I know that, again, that sounds like a cop-out answer, but it also gives you a little bit more creativity because you're like, okay, where can I bring my dog to exercise them?
Or why don't you put a muzzle on your dog?
Oh, that too.
You know what I'm saying? Okay, if you want to test the waters constantly and put your dog in a situation that, they want to get something really bad and can't get it, or I suppose it's different if you're working on desensitizing the dog, but even then, it's not a safe place because dogs can still run up. It's different if you're like on a sidewalk across the street, or it's a very set up situation where you can, get the hell out of Dodge if you need to, if a dog was coming, but put a muzzle on the dog.
Absolutely.
Why put your dog in this situation over and over again? I just don't think it should have happened.
Yeah. And it's very scary. I mean, if I was out in public and all of a sudden I heard like gunshots and people screaming and a dead dog, I'd be like, what the heck?
See, people are scared of Rottweilers too. Like,
horrible.
No one's going to give a Rottweiler a chance.
No.
If they bite you in the arm and you have a guy with a gun, he's going to shoot your dog.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a dog fight, your dog is going to get blamed. Your Shepherd, your Doberman, your Rottweiler, your Pit Bull, everyone has their thoughts on those dogs, whether they say it or not.
Right. They stereotype because
of the breed, the size. So that's all. Just And as far as like the house, where I just think that people often, they don't want the dog to jump on a person, so what can we do? And they never think, well, I have to give my dog another thing to do besides jump on them. That could be looking at you or paying attention, but the dog has to be on a leash. I just think people forget that you can teach them an alternative behavior. So it's like dogs jumping on counters. You can put some stuff on the floor. Like sometimes I'll just throw a treat on the floor here, there, and everywhere for a young dog who has been jumping on the counter, just because I give them a reason to be looking down at the floor and thinking that the floor is the thing that's producing food. And why would I be interested in the counter when the food is flying at me? Even if I'm cutting up dog treats, I just put things on the floor that interest the dog more. You can't always put a bully stick and things like that because you can only give so many bully sticks to a dog. But you could put back in the day, we used to have like marrow bones, and we just, and I'm sure now you still have them, but they used to be sterilized from the dog store. I don't know if they still have those there. I feel like I never see them. Just put like a little bit of peanut butter in there and put some on the floor and keep the dog's attention there. Well, what am I supposed to do? Sometimes he's right next to me. And I don't really like when people say, well, the dog is right next to me and he's still doing it, because you're there. You have to, if you can't coach them, you crate them. So there's a point where you can, that dog is going to jump on that counter and I know it. Like there's no way that I can look at your dog and in 3 minutes know all of the signs that tell me that he is going to walk near the counter. Don't even let him near the counter. Mm-hmm. And then you won't have the problem. Don't even let him near it.
But that's what I'm saying. If you just don't allow it to happen, it's not going to happen. Whether you're using a leash or whether you're using a place command or whether you're crating the dog while you're doing like cutting up vegetables. But it's like people cut up vegetables and they'll be like, or meat or something like, why is he here? And like you said, like, well, he's your dog. And he can't see what's on the counter and he's interested. And I wanted to say as well, some dogs are going to jump and others aren't. And I think a lot of times we get into the comparison game. I'll have a client that has a golden retriever and say, my neighbor has a golden retriever and she never jumps on anybody. How do I train her to be like Mitzi? And it's like, you don't have Mitzi. Like Raven doesn't jump. She doesn't jump on people. She doesn't jump on the counter. I didn't train her not to jump. She doesn't want to do it. And so she doesn't do it. The dog has never jumped on it. I have to like encourage her if I want her to jump on me, which I don't.
Terrible.
But like, that's what I would have to do. Right. So what I did when I was first doing like disc stuff with her to try to get her into it, because she didn't catch it right away. But since then, no, why would I want to do that? Everything else that I'm doing, I'm trying to get her to be, by my side and be really like polite and like not have a ton of energy and just relax, right? So like, but that's her. Like she never wanted that. Ruben is a jumper. Jumps on me. He'll jump on other people. Yeah, like I have to have more control. I have to have the leash. I have to, whatever. Like he has that in him that he wants to do that. So if you have a dog that likes to jump, then you're gonna have to manage the behavior more. You have to teach them alternative behaviors, and don't compare yourself to somebody else that has a dog that doesn't jump, because it's like they have a different dog. Comparison is the thief of joy, they say, Leah. They do say that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and also don't, what's the word I'm looking for? Discount. Don't discount obedience. I said this in the group class that I was teaching on Saturday. And nobody ever comes to us with like serious behavioral problems with their dog, and they can teach their dog like, and their dog knows like sit really well, down, heel, place, come, stay. Those behavioral problems, they're not going to go away with obedience, but somebody that has really good obedience on their dog usually doesn't have a ton of behavioral problems, because they kind of gone through this whole process and they understand how to communicate with their dog, and they understand like, okay, if I ask my dog to do something, I'm going to expect them to follow through with that command until, I release them or, continue working on whatever we're working on. And I'm not saying that it like solves all your behavioral problems, but obedience really helps. And checking out an obedience class might be a good idea. Like I know our group classes, like the people that come to our group classes regularly, like they see results and they see, that relationship improve, and they see, their ability to enjoy their dog more in public and off leash and all that stuff. And it's a really, really, really cool thing to see. But it takes work, and you have to teach your dog stuff, and you have to build on that relationship where, you feel comfortable asking your dog something and your dog actually does it. So yeah, I think that's important too, which is a tangent on the Rottweiler story, but I didn't really have anything else to say about that story other than I had a kind of a stomach turning reaction when I read it.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
For all the reasons I said.
Yeah. And
I try not to, put myself in those situations, but deal with it if it comes around. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason why I like the rain. It's because
nobody's out.
Nobody's out, and then and man, we had one sunny day. So, of course, everyone took advantage of it. I saw dogs in this neighborhood I have never seen before, and they are adult dogs. So either everybody got a rescue or a hell of a lot of new people moved into town.
Or their dogs just are in the backyard all the time.
This lady, yeah, maybe. And this lady was, I started laughing. I was driving up the hill, and we have this long, long street right before we turn onto the hill. And she was moving forward, coming at me. Her dog was behind her, just barking at the dog and the owner that was walking behind them. She was forging ahead.
The lady?
She was like, get me the hell out of Dodge. You could tell she was just so put out by this point. I don't know if she was coming from the pond or what, but she was moving forward. The leash and the arm were all the way back. The dog was barking and barking at the other dog. I go, boy, I hope you have a strong collar on, because if you don't, that collar is gonna break. Just I could just hear the dog. Hey, you're an asshole! Like just starting a fight. I was like, oh my god, yeah. That's good times.
Terrible. Good
times. I saw I see a lot on the street below us. There was another couple. A woman was walking with her daughter, because I know the woman and the daughter, and they had a Cavalier. And another person was walking, big dog breed. And as I'm driving, I'm watching the situation. I'm like, oh, this is not going to go well at all. Cavalier's coming from one side, coming from the north. The big dog's coming from the south. Arms are outstretched now. Dog's on the leash at the end of the... Oh, let's let them meet.
Oh, God.
Because it's looking good right now.
Idea.
We got a small dog. We have a big breed. The body language is like, let me get that little dog. Chaos ensues. The dog starts to bark. The woman gets scared. She's trying to grab the dog. The guy I drove up on the curb and I slammed on the horn.
Did it work?
It friggin' worked.
Good.
And I was like, sorry, sometimes that helps break it up. You have a good day. Yeah. And then I kept driving on. I was, because I knew it was hitting the fan.
Yep.
I knew that they needed help. The dog was going after the other dog, so I just laid on my horn. I drove up right to the curb. Mm-hmm. I scared the crap out of them. But the good news is I scared the crap out of everybody.
Yep.
And so everybody broke it up and then continued on.
Good. That was quick thinking.
Just helping out.
That wouldn't have been me. I'd be like, oh, that looks terrible. Keep going.
I never saw them again. I usually, I don't talk to people. I don't, these people just thought I was some crazed lunatic driving up. So I don't tell people, if I see a dog misbehaving, I don't walk up and say, let me take care of that for you.
Oh, yeah.
Let me try. I don't want
annoying.
anyone to know I'm a dog trainer at all and ever. I remember going to agility class and the woman was like, Lori's. I go, no, I'm nothing. I'm just a person.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to know who I am. I won't be soliciting you on the beach, or because one of my customers told me a dog walker came up to her, or a dog trainer came up to her on the beach, and wherever people go, sometimes dog trainers will approach you and try to give you advice. Nobody wants your advice.
Oh, it's terribly
Even
annoying.
when they're paying you, you question whether they really want your advice.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, lately I think more people have been coming out. This week was not so warm, but the week prior we had a little bit nicer weather. And one of the things that I kept noticing as I was driving through Winchester were the number of dogs who just bark at cars. you're just driving by and the dog starts barking at the car.
Sorry, from the yacht or
No,
somebody walking by?
Walking their dog.
Yeah, that's
like,
not
what
helpful at all.
is that? Guys, if you have a dog that is doing that, please seek help immediately, because that's like so not normal. And I see the owner, either they're just like just non-engaging with the dog because they're used to the behavior, I think, or on their phone because the dog's like super little, maybe on a harness, just like losing its mind. But that's not normal behavior at all. And I think that I think that I was noticing it more because in the nicer weather, I do think that there are a lot of dogs that are in backyards in the suburbs. And when it gets nicer, people are like, oh, I'm going to go take a walk.
Yeah,
not realizing that it's been like 4 months since they took their dog on a walk off their property.
Yeah, or the dog's been on electric fence and they sort of just run that electric fence in the front of the yard.
Yeah.
And they're just barking at every single car that goes by. Look, I scared it away. Oh, here it comes again.
Yeah.
Oh, scared it away again.
But the neighborhood I was in, there were some big dogs. Like there was a golden retriever and he was just losing his mind. And this poor lady, she was very small and just, looked like she was handling the reins of a horse or something. And I was like, this isn't normal at all. And the dog's anxious, you're anxious, the dog's huge. And what happens if the dog got loose? It would definitely get hit by my car.
Yeah, you're like, what's the end game, buddy? Once you track that car down.
Totally not cool at all.
No. But small dogs get away with murder.
Oh my gosh.
How to get away with murder.
Yeah. And then like when they're really acting like douchebags, the owners pick them up.
I know, and then they bite their boob.
So they're like above the dog that they're barking at. Yeah. Like, look at me, like I'm like King Tut up here, and I'm like, oh my god,
armpit piranha. Actually, and you know that the big dog. Once that little dog flies up with all that action, it's barking from the pit.
Ugh. I have to tell the Thora story. We can end with this if you want. So years ago, like 7 years ago, I was dog sitting for some friends of mine, and he had a ancient pit bull named Thora.
Oh yeah.
And she was a sweetheart, like a really cool dog. Very like pack driven, just wanted to be with her owner, handler, or whatever. And she was aging at this point. Like they lived up on the second story, and it was up a big flight of stairs, and I would like oftentimes just carry her up there because like it was easier. So when they didn't have a fenced-in yard, I was in Waltham, I was house sitting, and Flora would just be loose in the yard and go to the bathroom, would not leave the yard. Would not. There could be turkeys, deer, anything. She would not leave this yard. So I let her out, and she was just in the yard hanging out. It was a nice day, I remember. And this woman was on the opposite side of the street. So she wasn't even on the sidewalk near the house. She was on the opposite side of the street, and she had a little Bichon. And Thora's a pit bull, right? So the lady started yelling at me, you need to put your dog on a leash. You need to put your dog on a leash. And her dog was freaking out. Her dog was on a leash. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I can go inside if you want, but everything's okay here. And the lady picked up her dog, and her dog bit her. And I was just like, I'm sitting there. I look over at Thora. I look back at the lady, and I'm just like, this is insane. I'm like, this is such a weird situation. And I had just started working with dogs. So it didn't really register to me like what had happened, but I was just like, we got to go inside because this lady's a kook. And we just went back inside. But it was just one of those situations like, we're in our yard. I'm on my property. Like this dog isn't going anywhere. But anyway, that can happen too. You pick up a dog, they bite you.
Or they're just walking on and they redirect onto you. Don't do that.
Yeah.
You got to train.
Absolutely. You got problems, find a trainer.
That's all.
You should call us if you got problems. We'll help you. All right. So did a little bit of news today, did a little bit of storytelling. If you like what you listen to, share it with your friends, and we will see you next time.
See you next week.
Ta-ta.